This year we have seen a bunch of amazing budget keyboards. Typically they are 75% with some really nice features. And I have reviewed most of them except for one, the ND75, a $99 keyboard, and I also have the latest launch by them, the ND65. So today we'll be taking a look at both the ND75 and the ND65 in this video. For those who haven't seen it before, in terms of features, the ND75 probably will take #1 spot in terms of features for a budget 75% keyboard. So let's start off with the most important part of a keyboard. How does it sound and how does it feel? First impression, the keyboard feels amazing to type on and sounds great out of the box. To add on to that, one of the biggest features about the ND75 that the other Rainy 75, Bridge 75 didn't have is different mounting options. The ND75 actually has 3 different mounting options. We have the split O-ring gasket mount, silica gel mount, and top mount. So purely by swapping the mounts by itself, you will feel a pretty big difference in terms of flex. But in terms of sound, you will not hear a drastic change in sound. So the ND75 is something I would recommend based on what you already own or what you do not have. So if this is your first custom keyboard, then I would recommend you try out different mounting options to find out what you like. But if you're upgrading from a $50 keyboard to the ND75, I would recommend you choose a specific mount that you really enjoy the typing experience on and try to capture the best sound profile for that mounting option, which is exactly what I did. So here's what I have. In my opinion, the O-ring mount had a thockier sound profile, the silica gel mount has a more balanced sound profile, and for the top mount, I would say it leans towards the clackier side, but top mount just has a really specific sound, you know? And now that you know what the board sounds like, I'm pretty sure most of you would be able to guess that we have the standard set of foam installed, especially the PE foam. Now, I can understand if you've been watching your channel for a while, you might own a few keyboards, you might have like 3 $500 keyboards. So this ND75 will not appeal to you. This ND75 is targeted or made for beginners, as an entry-level keyboard or as someone who owned a really old keyboard that wants to upgrade. I mentioned that because typically the hardcore enthusiasts or the higher end stuff usually try to use lesser foam, but this uses a lot of foam and it sounds really good because of the foam. So let's not have any mix-ups between whether you like foam or not, it's all personal preference. But now it's time for the features. It has 2 of the best features you can find in a custom keyboard. We have a magnetic daughterboard connection and the ball catch system on our housing. With these 2 features, disassembling the board takes a whole of 5 seconds. Especially if you're trying to change how the board is mounted, it saves a lot of time. But something to take note about the ND75, the ball catch system, when you're removing the top frame, you do have to be careful of the cable that is connecting our LCD screen to our PCB. They do provide a spare cable just in case you break it, but just be careful. Which also brings me to the final feature of the ND75, the LCD screen. It's able to showcase the date, time, battery level, connection type, and you can change the lighting modes. It has a healthy amount of different options for you to play around on this LCD screen, and you can also upload your own GIF. I would say that pretty much sums up the ND75. It's a great sounding board, it feels nice to type on, it has 3 different mounting options for you to play around with, build different sound profiles around it. We have the ball catch system, the magnetic daughterboard for quick disassembly, we have the LCD screen, which when you compare all these features to the Rainy 75 or the Bridge 75, those boards didn't have all of those combined into one keyboard, which is why I said the ND75 definitely takes #1 spot for the amount of features it's able to squeeze into a keyboard. So at $99, it's a pretty much a no-brainer if you're trying to get into entry-level keyboards, or if you're trying to upgrade from like a, what do you call that, the GMK67. If you're upgrading to aluminum board, this is a pretty good option. They do provide barebone kits as well, which would be even cheaper. But at $99, the only downside that I can think of is the lack of support on VIA. They do use their own software because I would say because of the screen, but if you're okay with that, then this is a very easy recommendation. Now it's time for its younger brother. We have a ND65, and this comes in at $69. Yes, you heard me right, $69. And as I mentioned, for the ND75, similarly, this is made for the entry level, this is made for beginners. To start things off, let's see how the ND65 sounds straight out of the box. So in terms of sound, I actually do prefer the ND65 over the ND75. The 65 sounds a little crispier, it sounds a little thockier, and sounds a lot creamier. It has a very minimal design, it's nothing too extravagant, but the side profile does add on to the design aspect, making it look less like a rectangle block. On the back, it is completely screwless, and the screws are actually located at the front. We have a polycarbonate plate, the usual foam kit, and our PCB. We do not have the ball catch system and magnetic daughter board, and I did ask them about it because it felt like a bit of a wasted opportunity since the ND75 had both of those two features. Why didn't they apply it onto the 65? And what I got was that they were trying to lower the price as much as possible for the ND65, so they didn't include those two features. In terms of mounting, we have a silicone bean mount, and paired with the polycarbonate plate with flex cuts, it provides for a very healthy amount of flex. It feels really comfortable to type on. And because the ND65 is basically like a new launch, there aren't many typing tests out there, so I decided to try out different switches without PE foam to get a better idea of how this keyboard sounds. After all these different switch configurations, something I learned from the ND65 is that the foam itself really shapes how the keyboard sounds. The foam and switch of your choice will really change how your keyboard sounds drastically. Basically, all you have to do is choose a switch that is on the clackier side, or maybe choose a switch on the thockier side, install those with the proper foam configurations, and you will actually be able to achieve that sound profile that you really like. It's actually really easy to tune this keyboard. In terms of how it looks and sounds, I actually really like it. The two-tone look to the case, basically they didn't go for a single color on both the top and bottom frame, which I think looks really good. But $69, there has to be a downside to the keyboard, right? There has to be. And honestly, there is only two that I can think of. The first one isn't even justifiable. The first one is that it uses plate-mounted stabilizers. But the plate-mounted stabilizers with the factory loop drop sounds really good. Like, I didn't really have to tune or do anything to them, and they sound just fine. The second thing is that it uses north-facing sockets. We have a 5-pin hot swappable PCB, but it uses north-facing sockets, which means you might run into some interference when you use cherry profile keycaps with normal switches. But on the 3 different switches that I tried on the board, the HMX switches, the Gayron switches, with cherry profile keycaps, I actually didn't run into interference. So I would say that would be the only thing you want to look out for, but based on my own experience, keyboards nowadays, even with north-facing sockets, our switches nowadays are like, they just don't cause the interference we used to have in the old days. The ND65 for $69, I feel like it's pretty hard to complain about anything else. It comes pre-assembled with double shot PBT keycaps and the Kale Blue Lotus switches. It even has triple mode connection. I would say the strongest selling point of the ND65 is how the keyboard sounds and how you can get it to sound with the different configuration of foam and switches. So this has been the ND75 and the ND65. Honestly, 2 really good budget boards at the current price point. So if you're interested in any of them, the links will be down below. We have come to the end of this video. Like this video if you enjoyed this one, comment your thoughts on the ND65 down below, and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.